Tonight, gonna go over the group draws that we see here from the League of Legends World Championships draw that happened today. Riot had a pretty interesting system. Gonna go over how each team was placed and why they were placed in different areas. I know there was some confusion at the time, maybe how certain teams got placed in different type of groups. We'll break that down one by one as we go through each group. I'll go over how each group is, kind of the main idea of the group. I'll give you my catchy names for each one. Go over each team, their strengths, what to expect. I'll give you my predictions for each group. Obviously, knockout stages, since we're doing a random draw this year, I can't tell you what I think's going to happen. I'll give you my top 3 teams, and then at the end I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break down the odds for what I feel for teams that have a chance at the World Championship. You might get mad at me, you might say the odds are crazy, but if a team's having like double-digit odds, they're a long shot already. You can't think, oh wow, this X team is not better than this other team. Why do they have better odds? It could be because they're in a better group. Both teams are a long shot. If you're in a group with 3 tough teams and the worst team is in a group with like no competition, obviously they have a little bit better chance of advancing to the next round in Worlds and getting further. Not saying the team's better, they just have better odds of getting further. And the further you go, the better chance you have of actually getting to the World Finals and winning. We'll go over first how the group stage draw went down. You had the 3 pools, right? We had the pool for the 1 seeds that were drawn first, with CLG, Fnatic, SKT, and LGD. These teams would not be affected in any way, shape, or form from the group they're drawn into. Remember, the rules are you can't have any teams from the same region in the same group. This had a huge play later on, confused some people up a little bit. They didn't explain it very well fast. They kind of just wouldn't try to do this feel like it's like an hour segment. I mean, they probably could have made this into a 2-hour show. I would have liked to see some type of hype up for that, but they have a schedule. There isn't really too much to talk about because the patches and everything are so different that there's a lot to expect here in the future. First team that was drawn was Counterlogic Gaming. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm a CLG fan pretty hard, so when we saw that first one, I actually got kind of nervous because I knew that means in the second pool, that first round we're drawing to a lot of teams that could do us in pretty easily. And we'll get more on that later. Surprisingly, the second team was Fnatic, so both LCS teams went off right away. So gaming, and I was at work. I had it all on the side. I looked over. I'm like, not Yowie. Riot messed it up a lot today. I messed it up once. I'm not gonna mess it up anymore. The Flash Wolves were the first pick team for Group A. Every fan of CLG in the world are like, we have given you faith, and faith has received us back, because that means we've avoided a huge draw where you could have gotten any of the 2 Chinese teams, any of the 2 Korean teams, AHQ. I mean, they were drawing to 2 teams that were pretty good to them, and that was Yowie and H2K. And they managed to pull the Flash Wolves. I messed up Yowie again. Terrible person. So that was a huge, just off the bat, just like okay, well, CLG just stepped in crap. Next up, Fnatic. Their group we saw Invictus Gaming drawn. Interesting. It's the 3rd team from China. Have some really good players. I don't know if their synergy and everything's on, but their talent, I think, is just as strong as an LGD or EDG. I think their talent's a lot better than Fnatic. If you're Fnatic, you hated seeing the Flash Wolves go first. Your only hope was maybe getting TSM there, because that was like the only team out there that could potentially give you an easy group stage. But Invictus Gaming, it could have been worse. Could have been Edward Gaming. I get more into it later on what happened as well with other groups, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well they do and how Reignover is able to adjust to Kakao and Vabibin's able to handle Rookie, because Rookie is carrying this team hard. Watching LPL playoffs, if it wasn't for Rookie, we'd be looking at Kalju right now being in the World Championships. But Rookie has probably been almost the MVP, right behind him for the whole entire LPL this last split. Because without him, I don't know where exactly Invictus Gaming would be. But it's going to be interesting to see that matchups play out. I think Fnatic might have a stronger bot lane, but either way, we'll get into that more later. The third team to get picked in SKT's group was H2K Gaming. Boy, did that just mean that, like, welp, SKT basically has, like, a warm-up group now. Because doesn't matter what the next team's going to come, there's no way they're not going to finish top 2 with H2 Gaming in there. Like, because it takes out the best third seed from a LCS region and Origin, and pretty much just leaves the idea up that, like, hey, it's going to be a pretty easy group for SKT. Kind of similar to CLG, but SKT is just that tier above. I have them in my personal rankings, ranked 1 at the, how they came in, how strong they are. I think that LGD and EDG are very close to them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they beat them. I might predict that later on in the bracket. But I think coming in, it's hard not to have SKT ranked number 1. Mainly because of how much better Wolf and Marin is playing. But that could be due to bad competition in the LCK. But next up, we saw the first Korean team drawn in the Pool 2. KT Rolser for LGD. And what this pretty much did was, it meant that, like, if you're AHQ, you're hoping to God to not get that bracket, because that would have been the legitimate, like, hard group of death. Whether if you had LGD, KT, AHQ, or SKT1, Edward Gaming, AHQ, like, that is a dense bracket. KT coming in, they're kind of hot. They're hands and above better than everybody not named SKT in Korea. Someday is a beast. I think, though, he isn't as strong as maybe people like to put off. I'm not going to say any names. There's just, one caster in Korea that loves KT. But that's besides the point. So that was pretty simple. Every team got drawn pretty much quick, so then we kind of start getting to the confusing parts, because the next team drawn were AHQ Esports. Now, they had to move to Group B because the Flash Wolves are already in Group A, so you can't have 2 LMS teams in the same group. Meaning that the 3 teams left were KOO Tigers, Team Solo Mid, and Edward Gaming. Now the key here is that you have to make sure that you're not going to lock yourselves into each region, or you can't have the teams get locked in with the same region, same things. And this is why you saw TSM moving, and TSM was the next pick, moving to Group D. With these 3 teams remaining, obviously TSM can't go in with Counterlogic Gaming, so Group A is out, which means that Group C or Group D. If they go in Group C, that means that you have a Korean and a Chinese team left opening in Group D, and you can't have that because you already have those 2 in there. So TSM, essentially from this point on, those last 3 teams were locked in the minute AHQ was picked. Because TSM could only go in D, KOO could only go in A, and Edward could only go in C. It could have changed if Edward went to B, or KOO went to B, but because AHQ was picked, it pretty much locked in the rest of this Pool 2. Which, in essence, made life really great for CLG, because they get the 3rd and probably the weakest of the LPL, LCK teams in their group in KOO Tigers. Edward Gaming gets put into the group of warm-ups with SKT. Gonna have a lot of hype kind of around those games, though I don't think it's gonna mean that much. TSM gets put in Group D with KT Rolster and LGD. I'll get more into that group later and what I think of it. And then finally the last round came, and you saw that Pain Gaming was picked first. So, boom. Easy wildcard. You missed Origin for CLG. You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, you know what? We got KOO, it wasn't H2K or whatever. We got Pain Gaming. I know it wasn't Bangkok, but, we'll take that group. Like, this group here is finalized. The next team I think that came out was Origin, and they immediately went to Group D because Fnatic and H2K Gaming were in Group B and Group C, so that was pretty simple, which set up that group in that we see D. The third team to get picked was Cloud9. They went straight into Group B with Fnatic, AHQ, and Invictus. And then Bangkok Titans were kind of left over to go into the group of get our heads beat in pretty easily. So there was a lot of confusion with TSM and why TSM went the way they were, and why certain groups went there. But that's basically how the group stages went by their process. Teams got lucky. Teams didn't get lucky. If you want to see the lucky teams, Edward Gaming got pretty lucky because even though they're really, really good, and they should always get out of the groups, they could have just as easily have been put in the group with Fnatic and AHQ, or AHQ be put into the group with SKT and Edward Gaming, and that's putting like three really potentially good teams in a group that one of them's gonna have to lose. So getting H2K and Bangkok Titans, H2K performing pretty slowly at the end of the LCS in Europe, the second half, and in the playoffs. And Bangkok Titans, somebody who was just, I don't think, very coordinated in their play. Edward Gaming probably was the biggest Pool 2 winner there was. People might say KOO was a big Pool 2 winner, but I think Edward Gaming, getting the experience to have those best of ones against SKT1, knowing that they can't face them in the quarterfinals, it's just a really simple thing. Because I think the only team that Edward Gaming has to avoid is probably LGD until the finals, and that's like those are the three teams I think that'll just hopefully they'll avoid each other. But let's start looking at groups with Group A. This is like the group of faith. Because if you're a CLG fan, a Flash Wolf fan, a KOO fan, or a Pain fan, you just about probably came in your pants whenever you saw this group made, because this is like avoiding all the tough teams and giving each one of the teams hope of placing first or second in their groups. Starting off, Pain is obviously the weakling. They come from Brazil. They have, I don't think they were the best team from Brazil. I know they won their series against IMZ or IMTZ, but I think they're going to struggle here. They might pick up a game or two, and that might be very important, just like Kaboom would last year. That game against Alliance with Kaboom was very, very important when it came to actual who went away or not. KOO, I think, are going to be the favorites. What's interesting is CLG apparently is kind of connected to Pain. They're pretty good friends, I guess. They maybe scrimmed each other in the past or whatever. And I know recently on Double F stream, KOO was on like a whiteboard behind him with like 8-10 or 8-11. So I don't know how many times they've scrimmed. If that was timing a scrim, that was a record. These two teams have played each other in scrims, so it's interesting that now that they're in the same group, they know that have some experience with each other. Flash Wolves are interesting because they have some decent players. Their bot lane, I think, is pretty strong. I think they're underrated. I think the LMS as a whole is underrated. If you watch some of those games, they look a hell of a lot better than the LCS games in EU and A at the end. I don't know if they're better than the CLG. I know CLG is missing their jungler Xmithy, but what's one of the good things is that Xmithy wasn't the main shot caller. Those are Aphromoo and Zion Spartan. So unlike like a Cloud9 situation when High was brought in, this is almost like a mechanical position fill. you don't know if especially nobody knows if the Filipino government will be able to get him a visa or not. I know that's big news on Reddit lately. I don't think it's going to be too big of a hit for CLG. I mean, their strengths are still in like, I think they strong laning and their bot lane. I mean, CLG has the best bot lane in this group. I might be biased. I'm a CLG fan, but you watch people around the world look at Doublelift and Aphromoo and how they lane swap with them. I really don't think that any of them can match up to that bot lane. KOO is a very good team, don't get me wrong. They're much better than any of these team-and-team fightings. Kind of weak early, which is great for CLG, because they might be able to get a game off of KOO. I think KOO's going to maybe go 5-1 in the group, maybe 4-2 if lucky. I think 5-1 will win the group. I think CLG's going to go 4-2 or maybe 3-3. If they go 4-2, they're going to get second in the group. 3-3, they'll probably be tied with Flash Wolves. The key for them is 2-0 Pain Gaming and get a game off of KOO. I think whichever one of these two teams gets either gets a game off for KOO or doesn't lose to Pain Gaming, they're going to be the ones that advance the second seed. I like CLG there. I think Pole Belter's a lot better than people want to give him credit. I think the mid lane meta is going more towards his style. I think top lane Zion right now with the Juggernauts, it just feels like it's going to be right towards his area, and I don't think there's anybody from an English-speaking team that has a better understanding of the AD carries in the meta right now more than Doublelift. People made fun of him when he started playing Tristana middle of the season, and now Tristana is just the staple pick. Everybody's picking her in every region. And it was the foresight that he knew what was coming ahead of time. Might not have been perfect then, but those comps that they were running, like protected Doublelift comps, those are the comps you're seeing be run in China a lot and Korea a lot. So, people like to make fun of CLG for that mid-season slump, but they kind of just started that meta maybe at the wrong time. So, KOO first seed, CLG second seed. Yowie potentially upset the second seed. I think they're a lot better than people want to give them credit for. But now we go to the group of death. People want to call something another group of death, but there's no way in hell that Fnatic, Invictus, and AHQ are not the group of death. If you ask people before today if they thought these three teams would be ranked in their top 8, majority of the people would probably say, yeah, I can see all three of those teams being in the top 8 and being in the quarterfinals. AHQ has had an impressive split. A lot of hype is around Westor, but they have a solid top laner and a very, very good bot lane. They lost 3 games during their time in the LMS split. They've had the luxury of having over a month off and being able to work on the patches and all the new champions way before most of these teams got to do it, because they're worried about playoffs and they're worried about other stuff on past patches. So while teams are still playing on patch 5.14 or 5.15 on the competitive world, AHQ is getting the solo queue time and the training time in 5.16, 5.17 with the new updates with Fiora, Gangplank, Garen, Mordekaiser, Darius, Skarner. They are able to have that most experience because they qualified at the end of July. I think people don't underrate them. I put them up highly. I would put them in my top 5. I think they're going to surprise people. I think they're better than IG. I think they're better than Fnatic. I think that their early game pressure is exactly what some of these teams don't do well against in this game. And I think a lot of experience in the split of how to close games out, I think, probably fine-tuned themselves from never MSI. Fnatic, you have Invictus Gaming. We went over them already. We have Rookie, you have Kakao. They have a kind of iffy roster around them. I think, though, that they're still strong. I think their early game is still strong. If you're Fnatic, this is not the teams you want to see in there. You don't want to see a Chinese team in AHQ because those teams play so hard and aggressive early, and Fnatic plays so poorly early, as seen by multiple deficits throughout the LCS split with some of the relative okay teams in Europe. I mean, you just look back at MSI and I know people are like, well, it's a different team, different Fnatic, but like, is it really different when you're seeing in the finals of the LCS Europe, Origin, the first game, just come out and just stomp them in 20 minutes? Like, we're not talking about best of 5 series here for Fnatic. These are going to be multiple best of 1 series where like teams can easily come out and just teams that are aggressive early do much better in group stages because you don't get a chance to play for that late game. You don't have a chance to adapt afterwards. If you're able to surprise the team and get on them quick and close it out, that's it. That's the best of 1. And that's why this is terrifying as a LCS fan or a Western fan looking at Fnatic's group here. Fnatic has probably been working on their early game. They know what their problem is. I think in the best of 5 scenario, they'd be okay with it, but in the best of 1 against these two teams, I don't see them making it out of this group. I see... Also, you know what? I'm going to say Invictus is first, even though I think AHQ is better. I think Invictus just has more seasoned kind of pros and big style games with Rookie and Kakao. I think AHQ will take the 2nd seed. I think Fnatic will go home 3rd. And I think one of the keys here is I think Cloud9 is going to take some miracle-ass shit game off of Fnatic. By some miracle-ass shit. Like, it's going to be like Sneaky carrying on a stupid champion like Kalista or Draven, and just winning the game for them, like we saw in the Gauntlet. I don't think Cloud9 should even win a game in this group, but I think they're going to do it. I mean, there's so much just easily carry talent and Sneaky and the Incarnation that they're just going to pick off one game, and I think Fnatic is the easiest team to pick a game off of. And because of that, I see Fnatic missing out on missing out on the knockout stages. And I kind of saw this coming because that early game weakness is not what you want to have for group stages, and I knew what the draw system was going to be, and there was a good chance that this could have easily just been a Korean team as well. They could have also got lucky like CLG, but I think Fnatic is in deep trouble here. And I know I'm going to get hate from you people, and I'm going to get hate from Fnatic people, but you can't keep having those bad early games and now go against the teams that are so good at getting early advantages and just crushing teams early. If it was best of 5s, I can see Fnatic beating both AHQ and Invictus. But in 2 best of 1s, you don't get the chance to, regroup after one game. You just don't get that chance, and I see them going 0-2 against one of those teams, 1-1 against the other, and then 1-1 against Cloud9, because I just for some reason think Cloud9's going to get lucky one game, and I don't know why, but they're going to pull a kaboom of their own, and it's going to be terrible, because you're going to have all these European fans in Europe just watching another top team of theirs disappoint in group stages. I hope it doesn't happen. I want to see Fnatic succeed. I want to see Fnatic come out of this group number 1. But I think this is the big diagnosis of this is the toughest challenge for them. If they make it out, and even if they go to the quarterfinals and beyond, it will not be as tough as this group stage because these teams are exactly what counter them, and it's not in the best suit for Fnatic. Now we'll look at group warm-up, where we have 2 of the top 3 teams in the world, teams that played each other in a best-of-5 series that was amazing at MSI, SKT Edward Gaming, and unfortunately for H2K Gaming and Bangkok Titans, you guys are going to be practice dummies. A lot of these pro football teams have scout teams that they use, to kind of prepare themselves for future things. And that's what this group is. This group is just going to be SKT and Edward Gaming feeling each other out and feeling out different type of strategies and just cruising into the knockout stage. SKT, I think, will win this top seed. I can see Edward Gaming, though, going 1-1 and winning Game 3 against them in a breaker. But I think SKT will take the 1 seed. Edward Gaming will happily take a 2 seed because I think they'll be fine with that. And I think both teams are going to use this group stage as like public scrimming. Nothing really else to say about that. It's just two amazing teams with two of the three worst teams in the tournament. So there's that. And then people like calling this Group D the Group of Death, and it's not the Group of Death. You know what it is? It's the Group of Shattered Dreams. Why is it the Group of Shattered Dreams? Because people want to think TSM and Origin have a chance against KT. But if you watch how they play, both of them, and how poor they are with warding and how poor their teamwork is together and their split pushing is, neither of these teams have a chance, this group. LGD's gonna smash them both. LGG is just a phenomenal team, top down. They're maybe the favorites coming in the Worlds. I think SKT gets that a little bit better just because they have the Worlds experience with Faker. I mean, have a little bit easier of a group, I guess you can say, but Origin is a very poor split pushing team. I know Monty loves Soaz, but watch those games they lost, especially that 5th game. You can count like on 3 hands how many times Soaz was going to get caught split pushing for no reason, or Expeke was pushing a side lane and that wasn't in pushing hard places where warded, and that's actually what lost him that game 5. You had one play bot where Expeke got dove on by Fnatic or in the bot lane because he was farming and he had no protection. And at the very end, he was mid lane, and Xpecial was just like, Flash Tibbers, yay, GG. And, like, that's just how poor their teamwork is. And you saw that against Roccat, and that's why they went 5 games against Roccat. Because they have great talent, they just don't have any solid teamwork. And I think it'll just be shown here, just like TSM doesn't have very good teamwork. I don't think they have the talent Origin does, but I just think both teams are going to go like 1-5. And then it'll just be the group of broken dreams because people thought they can contend and they just can't. LGG 1 seed, KT 2 seed. So that means looking at the end, my predictions of this, we're going to see KOO a 1 seed, CLG a 2, Invictus a 1 seed, AHQ a 2, SKT a 1 seed, Edward Gaming a 2, LGD a 1 seed, KT a 2. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go over the odds of each team, what I think winning this Worlds this year. I'm just going to go down each group and list them off. And I know people can get mad because some teams might be higher than others even though they're not better than them, but that's just because of the group they're in. They're in an easier group. You have to make it to quarterfinals to have a chance at winning Worlds, and there's just some teams that'll have better odds, and I'm going to go from top down. So I'm going to start off with the 5-1 odds. I'll put on SKT Telecom winning Worlds. Easy group, pretty good. Nothing really to worry about. I think they're going to be in tip-top shape. They're looking really crisp. I'd have them at the betting favorite. A lot of people coming in, the best player, maybe best coach, all around. At 6-1, I'm going to have LGD Gaming. Again, very deep team, super talented. I think they have more talent than SKT. I think they have less teamwork than SKT. But we'll see that later on in the tournament. 6-1, 5-1. That isn't really much different. I'm just giving SKT that betting favorite. 7-1, and I would have rated them equal with LGD if Edward Gaming wasn't in a group with SKT. So 7-1 for Edward Gaming. Just because they're probably gonna get a 2 seed, that kind of hurts the odds on a little bit. But these are the 3 teams that are gonna be below, like, single-digit odds. Like, these are the 3 stone cold favorites in this World's group stage, and I think anybody in the world would agree with that. Next up is actually going to be KT Rolster, and people I'm not saying KT Rolster is the fourth best team. Remember that. They're just playing in a group with easier opponents. And because of that, I'm putting their odds at 20 to 1. Not super amazing odds. Like 20 to 1 is still kind of a long shot, but that's where I put their odds at right now. And I'd have them equal with both KOO and Invictus, because both these teams, KOO's in an easy group, so their odds go way up because they're going to be a 1 seed, so that's going to super help them. And Invictus, I think, or just that, Chinese team are that good, so I think those three teams are all coming 20 to 1 odds. AHQ would have 30 to 1 just because they're not as experienced and, best of 5 play against top teams. Here comes where people's gonna hate me. Both Counter Logic Gaming and Fnatic I'd have at 50 to 1 for winning Worlds. Again, super long shots, really no chance. If one of them won and you bet like a 50 to 1 odds, you'd make a lot of money. But the reason why I put them even, not because Counter Logic Gaming is better, but their group is much easier here. Fnatic's group is much harder, and I don't know if they have the ability to get out of that group. So that's why the odds are the same. Both teams are super long shots to even getting to finals. So that's why they're the same. I'm not saying CLG's better, just that Fnatic is in a tough group. Next, I'd have Flash Wolves at like 75 to 1, and then the rest of the teams I'd have at 100 to 1 besides H2K and Bangkok Titans and Cloud9. Those three teams would be 200 to 1. So this is kind of my first video of doing the analysis like this. I'm going to try posting this to Reddit to get some feedback from you guys. I know I'm going to get haters because I said Fnatic's not going to make it out of the groups. I said no European team's going to make it out of the groups. That's not me hating Europe. That's just Europe getting a shitty draw. And 2 years in a row getting a shitty draw like they have. It sucks. Because it really, it isn't, it just sucks. But feel free to comment on the video. Feel free to comment on the Reddit post. Have a good day and have a good night.